let's just cut to the chase. What did you think about his entrance? What did you think about his representation in the MCU?
I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. I still hate the suit. I know it's comic accurate. I do hate the suit, but I did like that they did it well. I did like the entrance into it. And they played with it in an area where it's campy but not campy, which also leads me to have a little bit of interested hope of what's going to happen with Daredevil. Not that I ever think that Ryan Reynolds would mess it up, but it's more of just like how much they'll allow or what's the level of humor. But I think with Charlie Cox's return into it in this format, I thought it was like the perfect balance because it kind of played into two parts. It played into one part, being able to see Daredevil kind of still be Daredevil, but not maybe as heavy of a Daredevil. But the other part is the continuing the in-world development of heroes in this place. Like, I really feel like they're starting to take elements from Kick-Ass, The Boys, and shoot, I forgot the other movie that I was thinking of, but like you see that nobody's surprised. Peacemaker. That was the other one.
Yeah.
Nobody's surprised about people in costumes. Like nobody's surprised about powered people. It's more of just like it's like gang war almost in a sense. Like they exist. We just don't want to be in the same place that they are. And we kind of see that at the end. But like, I don't feel like anything was taken away. It's not Netflix Daredevil, but it's not, I don't feel like he's watered down too much. And I think, again, within the context that they had, like, I don't feel like he's that watered down. I feel like within the context that they had, it fit really well. And I do like that Jen finally got one good guy, and you know.
Yeah. There's some elements that I think I've said this to you before. I'm concerned about this Daredevil because more than any other, how do I put this? Every time they've added someone into the MCU that has existed outside the MCU, the Spider-Man, the Fox's X-Men, they've had two things going on. Number one, they've come in from struggling franchises.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about, is it Peter Evans comes in into WandaVision?
Yeah.
And in comes Professor X, comes into the Multiverse of Madness. And they're not coming off red hot. Right, they're coming out of franchises that were struggling. Same with Andrew, what's his face for the Spider-Man?
Andrew
Garfield, and and those Toby. Characters, Fox and Fiennes, they all came in from a struggling franchise. Then it comes to Tobey Maguire. They're coming in from what is about 20 years ago now, that franchise kind of wrapped up.
Right.
So this one here, Kingpin and all these guys coming in from the Netflix Marvel are actually coming in from really strong places as far as particularly Daredevil.
Right.
They're coming from a really strong place where MCU doesn't have to lift them up like he does with, say, the others. They actually have to try to almost lift their game up because I would still argue, Daredevil is better than anything in the MCU television world. Movies, different story. So this is where I'm really curious to see how this is going to work. Right. And it's one of the reasons that made it so good was, you used the word before, was intensity. The intensity of that series. You've got season 2, Matt Murdoch, or was it season 3? I think Matt Murdoch's in this church, struggling with his demons, struggling with who he is, struggling with what he's all about. He's got this nun there, ends up to be his mother. And then when he has these showdowns with Kingpin, they're really intense as well because Kingpin's bringing all his stuff into it. So then to take this intense character with these intensity and bring him into She-Hulk of all places, is interesting. And I was curious to see what kind of consistency they're going to try to bring across.
Yeah.
I think the fight scenes were pretty good.
Yeah.
I certainly like the way that She-Hulk pulls him up with the sonic slap, because that would absolutely knock him out, right?
Right. The sound
Yeah.
concept. Yeah.
That's where she's got it all over him. The fact that he, after meeting her 2-3 times, sleeps with her and then disappears and takes the walk of shame, that took away the intensity, because I don't think Matt Murdoch has many relationships in that series at all. I think it's only with what's her face, the really hot, bad but good chick.
You mean Elektra?
Elektra. I think he has a relationship with her, but he keeps people at a distance. Like, he doesn't. He keeps himself emotionally unavailable to most people. So that was a real departure. And then for him to actually walk down the walk of shame, which I will admit, yes, it was funny, right? It was funny. But I thought to myself, I don't think the Daredevil would walk in broad daylight in his costume down like that. Whether we give it a pass mark because it's just part of a frivolous joke, it's just a gag,
yeah,
or whether anything, that's just the two bits where I thought, I see now a little bit of departure there. Now, by the time he's supposedly in Echo.
Yeah.
He's supposedly, by that stage, we may not care whether about any walk of shame. Again, that could have just been like Wong, a gag for this particular series, which is disposable.
Right.
That's just so much. I don't think I'm super worried and concerned about it, as long as when they get to this series, 18 or so episodes, really long, they stick that
full. I think there's two parts that came, and I think that walk of shame part, I was studying through, for me, thinking about it after I watched it, because it really could go one of two ways, whether it is it is either a full departure and making a gag of the character, which kind of spoke to to your point in that, or it speaks to volumes about where we're taking Daredevil to in terms of his relevance on the grander scale, because that part, which is what kind of brought to my idea of the people aren't surprised by mass or powered people. So it's different, but not out of the norm. But I think it also spoke to where we're really placing Daredevil in terms of the level of hero that we want him to be. The Netflix show made him an A+ hero for the viewer.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So we're willing to take the time and spend, and we want the reverence for him in that element. But we also have to remember that he is a New York neighborhood regional ground level hero, which is why the walk of shame also didn't really bother me that much, because I think it helped pronounce the fact that nobody knows who he is in California. He is in Hell's Kitchen, in the Devil of New York, or the Devil of Hell's Kitchen is a known entity. In the New York area, known entity. So whenever he does begin to interact with Spider-Man, which we know inevitably will happen, when he does begin to interact with Spider-Man in those sense, who will also be considered another ground level hero, that initial interaction with a She-Hulk, who is now going to be a national level hero just because of her revelation and who she is, it will make the connection, whenever that all comes down the line, I feel more significant. So like when we're in his home, I think we're going to see him in his home at his fullest, because I think we saw the elements of it whenever, he was on the leapfrog mobile and I can't believe I said
leapfrog. yes, we had leapfrog.
But like whenever it's in the leapfrog mobile, or whenever like he was fighting off the goons, which I love the fact that they distinguish the difference between goons and henchmen.
Yeah, that was a gag. That was a good gag.
But like seeing the him in his actual defined element, of I'm here to take care of an objective, and I crushed that objective. When he is in that, and I think that was the one part that I'm glad that they balanced in it. In the moments it needed to be serious, we got serious Daredevil. We didn't get gaggy Daredevil in a fight because they could have gone a lot of ways with that one during the fight. Mind you, whenever
we had the old hallway, we had the whole hallway thing, like which is kind of his trademark.
It's his trademark. So they didn't gag that up because they really could have. Even when he fought She-Hulk, like his movements were legit, which while will be a little sad to lose a bit of the realism that Netflix brought to it, I do like the fact of seeing actually the power that the movie tried to do, but the strings were so terrible that it just didn't work with Ben Affleck. But it feels like I'm getting a middle ground between Daredevil 2003 and Daredevil 2012. And so, like, in those aspects and the movements, I want to be able to see the most. The storytelling, I think, will be to be determined whenever the show eventually comes. But I think this entrance of charming Charlie Cox, which we did get from Netflix, it's legit.
Let's remind our friends to please click on the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know when we have new videos out.
Subscribe!
Subscribe!
Subscribe! Oh, God.